Hello everyone, my name is Pukar Dhital. I'm an English instructor for the day and we'll be dealing about articles today for grade 7. So let's begin the class. A very simple and yet very important topic. So what do you think is article? Well, you must be aware that usually the words a, an, and the, well, just in case you'll get confused, it's word a, and the are called articles. But it's only about the implementation of all these articles, that is a, and the. So the effective use of all these words a, and the, it helps us form a proper sentence, a correct grammatical error-free sentence. So that's why it's essential to understand how we use a and the in the grammar. So there's a certain separation in these articles a and the. So in this case, we must understand that a and an, we call it indefinite article. We'll talk about it in a while. Indefinite article. While we deal with the as definite article. Definite article. So what are indefinite article and definite article? Let's give some example of indefinite article here. Let's write here doctor, and let's write here as an example, he saw the doctor. Now you see in these two examples, in indefinite article, a doctor. So what do we understand when we write a doctor? Here it defines us that we are here dealing with any doctor. It could be any doctor out of many. There's no specific doctor. We're here talking about any doctor out of many doctors. But here, the doctor means that a patient here has gone to pay a visit to the same doctor, to the particular doctor with whom he had been following up. All right, it talks about, it individualizes, it makes a particular doctor. I'll further clarify this with an example. So when we deal about indefinite article, which are again a and an, here are the cases where we use a and an. So in the first case, you can say we use it in its original sense of one. For example, give me an orange. See, in its original sense of one, meaning here and before the noun orange means that he's here talking about one orange. All right, in its original, focus on these words, sense of one, meaning here he's talking about one orange. At the same time, 12 inches make a foot. Now, here again, 12 inches make, we're talking about a foot here, meaning we're here dealing about 1 foot. So you see, this way here we talk about in its original sense of one, meaning the application of a and an deals with oneness, individualizes particular things. Let's move on to the next example. Now here, number 2, a and an are used before unspecified person or thing when they are mentioned for the first time. Now, for example, once a king ruled over, let's say, Nepal. Once a king ruled over Nepal. Now, the application of here, a king, we're not here dealing with any particular king, but this just defines that a country named Nepal was once ruled by a king. And don't forget, see, before unspecified person, this does not define who the person was, a king. We don't know his name. He was a king. Or when they are mentioned for the first time. And usually you happen to have noticed this in stories, right? Similarly, let's go with one more example. An old man came looking for you. Now here again, an old man, unspecified person. We don't know who the old man is. So if you are home and if an old man comes to your house to pay a visit to you, all right, and then he goes by, and if you are notified, an old man comes to your house, so that would puzzle you, because then you would not understand who the old man actually was. So again, let's move on to the next example. Now it's used before a word that refer to a whole class. Now it's used before a word that refers to a whole class. Alright, so here again, let's say, so what class are we talking about here? So we'll clarify this with an example. A dinosaur can swallow an elephant. Look at the application here again. So this particular a dinosaur, now relate this to, see, before a word that refers to a whole class. The word a dinosaur here means any dinosaurs or all the species of dinosaur can swallow an elephant. Okay, so that's why, see, before a word that refers to a whole class here, a dinosaur here represents the whole of its species. That's why, again, in this kind of application, we use a. As we move further, and again we have a table. Table is a useful piece of furniture. Now, can you specify what a table here, what does it say? Means this table here is talking about the whole class of table. It represents, let's say, in one way, the whole tables. Alright, means all or any table is a useful piece of furniture. And the fourth kind, the next kind, is what we call before a profession. Alright, so this is the fourth one, which we called before a profession. For instance, he is a teacher. See, just like the title suggests, before profession, that is teacher. In this case, we have a. As we move further, his brother is a pilot. His brother is a pilot. Again, a before profession. So this is how, in these many cases, we use indefinite article, right, under the category of these four titles. Now, how about the definite article then? Use of the definite article, and which is, you must have known it by now, which is the. The means what? It is particular, anything particular. So let's move ahead with the examples. When we talk about a particular person, or it could be thing as well, or one already referred to. So again, what does this mean? So let's clarify this further with an example here. The book you want is out of print. Now, look at this definition again. When we talk about a particular person or a thing, in this case, the book, or one already referred to. Don't forget the second part, one already referred to. Alright? So the book you want, meaning this person here, he must have asked for a certain book. Alright? And he gets the reply, the book you want is out of print. Here again, we're talking about two things. One, the book is particular, and this book has already been referred here. Alright? And number two, they called a man, but it continues, the man was not in a mood to come, let's say. Well, don't be mistaken here by the or here. In the first sentence, they call a man. Any man has been called. Alright, but see, and look at the second, which it precisely talks about the second part of the definition. One already referred to. So this man has already been referred to. They called a man. So a man was called, but then when the sentence continues, the man, because the man is already used here, you see. So that's why the man was not in a mood to come. And as we move further again, we have when a singular countable noun, mind you, countable noun is used to represent a whole class. Again, don't worry about the definition. We'll clarify this with an example. For instance, the computer is a very useful invention. The cow is a useful animal. Okay, so when a singular countable noun is used to represent a whole class, here by class we're talking about the kinds. All right, for instance, here the computer. When we say the computer, the entire class of the computer is represented here, and make sure it's always countable noun. The cow, you see, again it represents the whole class of cow, and make sure it's countable noun. Let's move further. Before the plural nouns to represent the entire class. Examples. So before the plural nouns to represent the entire class. Again, here we're dealing with the entire class here, the whole class of people. All right. So let's give an example. The rich don't favor the poor. Second example. The old often disagree with the young. You might be here wondering about plural. Having said plural, you might be wondering here about anything ending in S. But no, here, they all rich people, right? The rich don't favor, again, the poor, meaning we're here talking about all the poor people. The old people, many old people, or all the old people often disagree with the young. Again, we're not here dealing about a young and the young. Look at that. The young, we're talking here about the whole young people, all right? So again, when we use any plural nouns, again, it is represented, and especially if it's dealing with the entire class, all right, the is used. Okay, so here you go, the young. All right, it represents the whole class of people. Now let's move further. Now this is interesting. I don't know, somehow I find this interesting. Before the superlative of adjectives. So just to give you a quick recall of the superlatives. So we have here good, better, best. So you know what? In terms of all these words are adjectives. But if we have to classify these, this good is what we call positive, comparative, and finally this best is what we call superlative. So every time we have superlative form of adjectives, we use the. Simple as that. For instance, the darkest cloud has a silver lining. Look at that. What is superlative here? Did you figure that out? Next example. This is the best book of English. Now, of course, dark, darker, darkest. Here's the superlative. And see, before superlative, we use the. So it's the here. This is the best. Again here, best is the superlative. Alright, and we are using the. So we always use the before superlative. So the next one is before the ordinals. Okay, before the ordinals. Now, what is ordinals? Anything that follows in row or sequence. Alright, number of a number. Okay, it deals with the number. Alright, relating to the sequence or indicating position in a sequence, like first, second, third, fourth. These are the ordinals. Okay, so again, see, so just in case you want to note this down, it let's say it indicates position in a sequence. Position in a sequence, right? So you'll clarify this with an example here. The first man in the row is my father. The first man in the row is my father. Let's talk about the second example. I read the 10th chapter of the book. See, ordinals is anything that follows in sequence, any position in the sequence. So here, this is ordinals. So the first man in the row is my father. Use of the. I read these ordinals and I read the 10th chapter of the book. Now again, let's move forward. And again, this is interesting. Before some proper names, or you can understand this as proper nouns. Now, what is proper noun? I'm sure you know that. It's any specific. We're here dealing with a specific noun. All right. For instance, let's take an example of a river. The Ganges, or the Amazon River, or the Amazon River. All right. So if you talk about the mountains, how about mountains? Mountains. All right. The Mount Everest, or it could be the Alps. right? Any proper nouns, all right? For instance, let's talk about holy books. Holy books. And we will have the Gita, or we'll have the Quran. See? So before some proper nouns. Moving further, we have before the names of the inhabitants of a country collectively. Now, before the inhabitants of a country collectively, meaning if you're dealing with any nationalities of any specific country or of any given region, we're using the. Example, the Americans were very happy with the poll result. Remember, the Americans, people who reside or who live or who are the nationalities of America. Okay? And moving further, we have now before the things which are unique. Now, how do you define uniqueness? All right, let's clarify this again with an example. The moon is beautiful, or the vast ocean looks calm at night. The use of the moon, the vast ocean. So this is how we use articles, definite and indefinite articles. But how about the term zero articles? Meaning when we just don't have to use articles at all. Right? There are also cases where we don't need articles. And remember, when you put articles where it's not necessary, the sentence structure gets wrong. You're not writing correct grammatically or grammatical error-free sentence. All right? So there are cases here as well. So let's deal with it. We don't use articles when names of materials, substances, and abstract nouns. All right? So, for example, focus on these three aspects: materials, substances, and abstract noun. For example, these rods are made of steel. Abstract, honesty is the best policy. We don't write the honesty is the best policy. Don't get mistaken here. All right, this follows the rule. Articles used before superlative. All right, but we don't write here the honesty, just honesty, no articles. Okay. Second case would be plural countable nouns that refer to the entire class. Plural countable nouns that refer to the entire class. Example, plural countable nouns that refer to the plural countable nouns that refer to the entire class. Oranges, plural countable nouns. We don't write the oranges or oranges. Oranges are rich in vitamin C. Okay, next case. Name of meals. Names of meals referred to in a general way. Example, when are we going for lunch? When are we going for lunch? See, names of meals referred in a general sense. So we don't necessarily say when are we going for the lunch. Okay, again we move further. We don't use the zero article in names of languages, games, and relations. Example, French is difficult to learn. I like to watch cricket. Sports. Cricket. And see, we dealt here with language. We dealt here with the sports. And how about relation? Mother has just come home. Alright, and the last one. Phrases such as by land, by air, by water. It could be all day, all night, at dawn, at night, and at noon. So whenever we use these phrases, we don't use, we have zero article. Let's clarify. Sima is going by air. The crow crows at dawn. So we don't necessarily put here any articles. No articles here. We don't necessarily put here any articles, no articles here. So this is how we properly use the article cases where articles are used. And there's one more thing that we must pay our focus on when we deal with definite and indefinite article. Let's talk about again from a or an. They are called indefinite article. Now you know what? This article, indefinite article, they're actually determined by sound. Alright? Now what nature of sound? Any word that begins with a vowel sound. Any word that begins with a vowel sound, we use an. Okay? We focus on the word here. I'll clarify this further. Now, having said vowels, we deal about A, E, I, O, U of English alphabet. And the rest are what we call consonants. All the letters apart from A, E, I, O, U. All letters apart from vowels. Okay, now bearing this in mind, just like the definition which I mentioned earlier, alright? A word beginning with a vowel sound. Okay, for instance, an orange. How about for honest? Figure it out yourself. How about our? You can figure it out yourself. Uncle? Figure it out yourself. Pet? Finally, so as we fill in what actually are the words. An orange, remember the first sound, the phonic sound, the very first sound of the word orange. Alright? That's why that O, A, E, I, O, U. So focus on the words, how we pronounce it. Orange. Alright? So an orange. Honest. Look at this. H is silent here. Honest man. O, A. We deal with the A here. The very beginning of the word. Alright? So that's why an honest man. Same thing. H silence. Our. Again with A. The pronunciation begins with A. Alright? Our. An uncle. An uncle. An ink pad. An enemy. Alright? So this is how we figure out. This is how we put out an here. Often, people have misconception like the moment we say A, E, I, O, U, this is often mistaken as they believe these A, E, I, O, U deals with the very beginning of the letter. For instance, if it's honest, people would say, they would write honest, assuming that H is consonant. But our focus is here only on the sound. Okay, how we pronounce things. And when we pronounce, if there's A, E, I, O, U, the vowels, we will always have an there. And rest of the words, whenever there are consonants, whenever we pronounce and there is consonant, then we use O. Alright? A word beginning with a consonant sound, A is used. For example, a boy, a watch. Hey, how about this? Right, and how about, any idea? A boy, a watch, because as we pronounce it, the very sound, the very phonic sound begins with consonant. But in case of university, look at this. People often are mistaken here as they take U, and whenever they see U at the front, they would write an. And which would be wrong, because if you pronounce university, alright, you'll see that we pronounce it with consonant at the front. University. It's not U, A, E, I, O, U, but it has somewhat like a university as we pronounce it. European. We don't say European. Alright, European. Again, consonant at the first. That's why the correct answer is a university. Okay? The correct answer is a European. Anything apart from English vowels, all the consonants, whenever we pronounce it, we use O there. And whenever we have vowels as we pronounce it, we use an there. So these are the rules of articles. So as a homework, you can read any of the selected chapters and you can underline the articles used there. And of the several many types which I had written here on this presentation, right, you can create your own example and then learn to write and provide 3 examples to all those applications of indefinite article and definite article. Thank you very much. And if you have any further queries, you can feel free to email us at learning@deerwalk.edu.np. Thank you very much.